All right. Cool. We good to go? Sweet. All right. Hi there. I'm John. This is my second time through, so I'm going to sound repetitive to myself, but not to you guys. I'm from Pennsylvania. If you look on the map, I'm from the blue state in the top right. And I currently live in Oxford, England. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and then I went off to England for graduate school. And I stayed there where I'm currently a teacher. I've taught for the past 3 years. Does anybody know what rowing is? The sport of rowing? No. Anybody? Yeah. Okay, but exactly. But it's mostly legs, believe it or not. So I did that for 9 years as well, alongside my studies. So I always did some type of sport alongside academics. And as a result, I'm also a rowing coach at university back in England. Yeah. So normally, the school I work at is actually, it's more similar to this group than the last group in that most of my classes are only 4 people big. So last group having like 30 people in here at once was like the biggest class I've ever had in a long time. Bless you.
Why are you in Moldova?
Why am I in Moldova? That's a great question. Because I wanted to visit. That's it.
Why Moldova from all the countries?
Well, I've actually been to many countries in this area. So I'm getting married, and my fiance's family is from Montenegro. So it's a very small country that most Americans have never heard of. And I actually did not leave the country for a long time. So in America, I never left the country. Most Americans don't have a passport. Fun fact, they think the world is America, and that is it. But as a result, once I stopped rowing, I needed something to kind of provide that adrenaline rush, that sense of adventure, and rowing was always that. The first time I left the country was actually, I was on the United States rowing team, and so I rowed in Belarus. That was the first country I ever went to outside of America was Belarus. So I've kind of just like visiting new places, especially places where it's amazing that I get to speak with you all and chat with you all. If you go to certain touristy countries, like, I don't know, France or something, most people that you meet aren't even from France. So here you get to meet all people from the community, and it's pretty nice. So that's why. And then I messaged this guy out of the blue and said, is there anybody I can speak with? And then he's like, do you want to give a presentation? And this was on Tuesday. And I'm like, all right. So here I am. So something I want to do to start off, and I did this with the last group, and I think it worked quite well, is how many of you know each other? You two know each other? Seems like you two know each other. Okay, anybody else know each other? No. Okay, so something I want to do that kind of gets the class going, and my students hate it and then love it after they've done it, is I want to do something called a 2-minute drill, where you pick somebody you have never met before, don't know well at all, and you just speak and the other person listens for 2 minutes in English. And being a good listener is harder than you think, because if you were speaking with me and I just stared at you while you were speaking with me the entire time, it wouldn't be too warm and welcoming and friendly. You'd probably be like, what the hell is this guy doing? So you need to be able to speak with your body language and make the other person feel comfortable, because you all chose to come here, which means you all have something in common. You chose to voluntarily come on a Saturday to listen to me, of all people, speak to you on writing an essay. So you have something in common right there. Okay? So what I want you to do is I'm going to time you, pair up with somebody you have never met before. Okay? If there's an odd number, I can come in. Okay? And I just figure out who's going first. You'll speak for 2 minutes. Now let me tell you what's boring. Okay? Let me tell you what's boring. Hi, my name is John. I'm from the United States. I have my mom, my dad, my brother, and a dog. That's the typical icebreaker I normally hear. That's boring. Everybody has that type of story. Tell me something interesting to your partner, because ultimately you're going to introduce your partner to me. Okay? And make sure you have a cool story. Okay? You all have cool stories, so don't be afraid to talk about yourself a little bit. Okay? So, 3, 2, 1, pair up with somebody. Pair up, make sure you're with somebody. Somebody different, we have even numbers, great. Okay, we're gonna start in 3, 2, 1, go! Somebody, in English. One speaker, one listener.
It was really nice to meet Katie. She's a very active person. She's in love with literature and the languages. She's learning, I know she knows Russian, Romanian, English, so now she's learning Spanish. She wants to move to Spain, and she has studied in 3 schools, one Jewish, one Russian, and one Romanian, and that gave her like a whole cultural experience. And she is a very beautiful person from inside, and she's very curious, I think. And this is a very good attitude. Let's say it's her force, being curious and wanting to know a lot of things.
Nice to meet you, Katie. Okay, who's next? Anybody? Introduce their partner. Take a risk. I promise I won't make fun of you. Anybody else? You want to try?
Okay.
You want to try?
Okay.
Okay.
So her name is Danielle. I don't know how to spell
Is it okay if you stand up and talk to everyone? Don't worry, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. Okay.
Everybody's with me.
Got you.
So her name is Daniela. She's 17. She likes physics, mathematician. So she has a bright future. She wants to study in Hungary, the new project that the Hungarian government launched. She's fond of documentaries. She likes watching YouTube. So she's not so active, but smart.
Very smart. Well, nice to meet you. Okay, what is your name?
Judge.
Judge?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. All right, who's next? I got a few more here. Come on. Come on. Anyone? Anyone? Take a risk. I'm going to start calling on people who are avoiding me, who are avoiding eye contact. There we go.
Okay, I want to talk about Hillary. She's a person I met here. So she wants to go abroad. I forgot the country. I'm sorry. Netherlands.
Okay.
Her mom isn't here. Is in another country. So she wants to be closer to her mom. And she hopes one day, after she graduates from university from another country, they will together and be happy.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. I was just about to ask you. Well done. Okay, one more. One more. You can ask me any crazy questions about me at the end if that makes you feel better. Anyone?
Random guy. Pick a random guy.
Pick a random person. You pick a random person. Point to somebody.
You.
I'm gonna tell about Lila. So she's a student of Spanish as well. They're in the same group.
Oh, excellent.
So she likes this language. She enjoys reading a lot. She goes to dancing courses. She enjoys dancing. What else? She knows 5 languages. She studied French in school, and she's very shy because of her English. But I suppose it's very nice. But she was very shy speaking. What else?
That's okay. That's good. Yeah, I'm shy about my Moldovan. I can't speak any. I can speak one language, English. I can speak British English and American English. I can go from literally to literally. Effective way to assess a student's performance. Continual assessments, such as coursework and projects, is not a satisfactory way to do this. And then the question is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? These are very common questions, so I always like to compare one or the other, or compare 2 points, compare 3 points, 4 points, depending on how big the essay is. So we'll keep it simple for now, we'll just do 2 points. So, first off, do we know what formal assessments are and what continual assessments are? Anybody have an idea? Formal assessments. Any guesses? You probably have all done them, you just don't know what it is called in English. So this is like testing. This is like, somebody in the previous room was telling me that you have a big test that you need to take before you go off to university in Moldova. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exams.
Yeah, kind of like an exam that means everything. So like, for example, in the UK where I teach now, it doesn't matter what you do all year. All that matters is how you do on that test the last day of school before you go off to university. So even if we do fun stuff all year and the kids do great all year, ultimately at the end of the day, what matters is how they perform in May. So I've had my students for 2 years and their exams are in 2 months, and this is literally all that counts with their 2 years for me. So if they wake up feeling sick or they wake up feeling not in a good mood or something sad happens, they have to take their exams anyway. That's one example. In America, it's a little different, especially at university, in the sense that we have something called continual assessment, and that's where we're graded throughout the year.
Like here.
Like here. Okay, cool. And this is like projects count towards your grade, coursework, so you can do essays along the way, and exams are part of your grade. Formal exams are part of your grade, but not the only thing. SATs are an example of a formal assessment that you can do in the U.S. in order to go to college, university. So, okay. So now that we have that, so continual assessment, we now know formal assessment. So what we're going to do is we're going to structure a roadmap in a way. I'll put letters by each and every single point you can go through. So the first thing we'll do is we'll have something called a general introduction. Okay. So what do you notice about this question? What two sides are there, and what do they have in common? What are they talking about? What is this question overall talking about? What is the main topic?
Assessment.
Assessments, right? What's your name?
Education.
Education and assessments. Great. Okay. So you want to write something that introduces the idea of assessments and what they are. Okay. So that way you can always refer back to your own definition. Okay, so even if you're a slight bit off, especially in the IELTS, you don't need to be 100% correct. Okay, you're right. They're more looking at your writing rather than your facts being right or wrong. Okay, obviously, if you have weeks to do an essay, you want to be 100% correct. Okay, but if you have a timed essay on a topic you've never seen before, okay, all you need to do is sum up this. So, who's got a general introduction about assessments and education? Anybody want to give an example? Just to try. Don't worry if you're wrong.
Example of what?
A general introduction sentence to kind of explain what assessments are.
Assessment is the evaluation of the performances of the students, of their knowledge.
Perfect, okay. So, our example will be assessments are what? Can you repeat it again? Assessments are?
Evaluation of students or pupils' knowledge and performances. Knowledge and performance.
Okay, good. You can say assessments are pretty important. Another way you can do it, assessments are important in education. Again, I'm going super general here, and you can apply this thing to even like the most academic. Go ahead.
Yes, this is what I wanted to ask. Should it be like an academic definition or?
No. In this one, we're just pulling from our minds, but if you had time or if you had a computer or something where you can look up information, you can give a definition of what assessments are, according to something, according to an author. So if you're at university, everything you do will have some type of like citation. So like, let's say I wrote something in 1995. Okay, you'd introduce it like that. Like, the definition of assessment is, and then put my name at it, because that is where you got it from. Okay. Okay, so once you do this, hey. Okay, so once you did this, after you get this down, okay, the most important thing in the first two parts, A and B, is that you don't have any bias. Okay, you're not swinging towards the subject either way yet. Does everybody know what bias means? Okay, does anybody not know? Because that's important. And it's okay if you don't know. Okay, because the last group, some people didn't know. Essentially, you favor something. Or you have like a favorite and you let that swing it. So if you already know what side you're going to take, okay, you start to let that come through where you want to give a general introduction before you start giving your opinion, okay? And then the second part is you want to introduce both sides of the argument. Okay, so right now we only have two, okay, depending on what the question is asking or if it's a highly academic thing, you might have like so many different sides, but right now we have continue and formal. So you'll need to tell me quickly, okay, what formal assessments are they, and what continual? Yeah, and so you give, again, you keep the bias out of it. Okay, you don't start talking about this one like this is your favorite, or you don't start talking about this one. You just say, what we just talked about. Formal assessments are like tests that standardize people on a massive scale, or continual assessments are, and whatever your definition of them is, like coursework and projects that count throughout the year. You can, whatever it is what you put here. And then in C is probably where you get to something you've heard of before, and you answer the question. Okay, so you have this question right here, and this is where you answer it. Okay, and this is often called the thesis statement. Okay, the most important point about this for me is you keep it short. Okay, keep it short, keep it concise, because you're going to back it up later. Okay, so for this one, it might be, I disagree. You can say the word I. I don't know what the kind of like norm is in Moldova. But in the UK, you can definitely use the word I in your writing, or we. And even in the US, once you get up to a high enough level, you can start using I and we. And then once you get really good at this way, you don't need to use I or we, but it just kind of helps you structure what you want to say. So it could be a simple, I disagree, I believe continual assessment is the best form, or is a satisfactory way to measure a student. That's it. You don't need to say why just yet. That is your argument that you will refer to the entire time. Okay? So, I disagree, and then, I think continual statements are better. Okay, and now you've set up this very concrete thing. You've given a definition of what assessments are. You've talked about both sides of your argument. So even if there's another side, let's say there's something completely different, you don't need to talk about it later, because you're laying out what you're going to tell the reader. Okay? And then you give your thesis statement, and now, can I erase this? Does everyone have this? Cool.
Don't you have this assessment painted on a piece of paper?
I do. I can send it to you if you want. If you
No, okay, it doesn't need.
I can show you at the end of class if you'd like. For presentation. Right, so then the next part, okay, and this is what the whole title of the presentation is called, okay, is you kind of create a roadmap of where you want to go. So you have this statement, okay, and then you're going to tell me, in this case we'll just stick with 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we'll have 3 points that will be elaborated on later in the essay. So for example, I disagree, so then we're talking about continual assessment. So this would be kind of like a point number 1 on supporting continual assessments. So why do we like continual assessments better, if that's what we decided on?
It allows the students sometimes to have better marks.
Better marks, okay. Why?
Because on that test day you might have a headache and it all goes wrong.
Okay, so it looks at the whole picture of a student.
Yeah.
The student as a whole over the course of a
It
year.
has one chance to.
And he can choose the title and the object, the sub-field that he knows better.
Okay, so I like it. So we can look at the whole picture of a student. It doesn't come down to one day. Okay? What's another? So then point number 2 will also support your thesis. Okay? So what's another reason why you think continual assessments are better, if you do? Any ideas?
Maybe the teacher gets to know better the student.
Teacher might get to know the student better? Did you have an idea?
No, I wanted to ask you to describe once again the continuing education.
Okay, so continual assessment is, everything is marked. Like, I have different grades from you all year that add up to your final exam grade. So maybe every week I give you a quiz, and that counts towards your end of your grade. Or every week I give you a paper, and the grade you get on that counts and affects your end of year grade. And every piece of work you do will affect the grade you get at the end of it. Whereas opposed to a formal assessment, and only a formal assessment, that'd be a test. I teach you all year. I give you practice quizzes. They don't count for anything. And then at the end of the year, you go into some room and you take a test, and that's the only grade that counts. Or a formal exam even is like, in university, could be like you don't do anything that counts all semester, and at the end of the semester, you have one big exam, that's your entire grade. Or 2 exams, and that's it.
Now it's clear, because you wrote a very small
Sorry.
letters, and I could not even understand.
But in Moldova, we are practicing continual assessments, right? In
Yes,
schools,
yeah.
universities.
Mm-hmm.
But the UK,
They have, especially high school
and universities.
and universities. Some people go 3 years. So a lot of my rowers that I coach, they go 3 years without anything graded. And then everything comes in the last week of 3 years. They have exams on everything for the first 3 years. How could you possibly sum up 3 years in a 3-hour examination? But they say it works. So, but this is my opinion for those who are watching. So, but I just think it doesn't paint an accurate representation of who you are as a student. So can we think of another point that supports continual assessments over formal? So we have the whole picture of a student.
I just said it. It's a better picture of a student because you assess it on a different.
Mm-hmm. So we have that one already.
It's not that much to learn in a short period.
Not that much to learn over a short period.
I mean, you don't have to learn the whole semester, like what you studied, but only some
little bit
paragraphs.
at a time.
In other words,
I'm sorry?
During the continual assessments, you prepare for a project, you get the mark for that project.
You get feedback.
You have to learn the information you get during 3 years.
It's true, but everything you should learn will build on one another.
Maybe the students are motivated to go to the class because they know if they do, they want to get a mark. So what's the point, really?
Okay, so they're more motivated. Students are more motivated. Okay, we'll go
To
with
attend the lessons.
the 10 lessons. Okay, so they're more motivated. Okay, so this, I think, is the most important one. This is where you support the other side. This is where you say formal assessments have a positive. Okay, because I think any good argument has to acknowledge that the other side exists. Okay, so I can't say, well, a really easy example would be American politics, right? If I'm a Democrat and I think Republicans are crazy, right? I would be a fool to say not all Republicans are crazy, and some of the things they're saying actually make sense. Whereas if I say they're all crazy, I'm not going to listen to them. Well, then it's not as strong as saying, well, I've looked at what they've said, okay, and I still think this. So, here you talk about formal assessments do have some pros. So what's a positive of some type of formal assessment? Go ahead.
If a student is employed and
Mhm.
has a good job,
Mm-hmm.
and he cannot attend the lessons regularly,
Okay.
so he could assume this formal.
Okay, that's a great one I have not heard of, but that's a great example. It allows for more flexible learning for a working student. Okay, we'll write that one down. Maybe who can't attend all the lessons, but they can still do a lot of independent study on their own. Okay, another positive is that they can standardize a big population.
Can what?
Standardize, in the sense that, for example, in America, we might have 350 million people, and how many of those people are trying to go to university every year, and how do you compare someone from California to someone in Pennsylvania to someone in Texas, where all the education systems are extremely different. Each state is like its own country in terms of education systems. And to go up to university, what do they have? They have the SAT. And that's something that everybody has to take. Now, do I think it's the best way of doing it? No. But I think it's at least one way of at least comparing everyone on one standard plane. Again, I don't think it's the best way by any stretch, but I think it's important that there is something that you can do on a massive scale. So, we have working students, and we can have, standardize the population. Right?
Also, something similar to what you said. It's because teachers can be more objective if they give only one test. Because if they do it throughout the year, they can get more subjective if they have students they like more or something like this.
That's a great one too. Yeah, okay. So 4 more, very objective. Okay, projects are very subjective.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. See ya. Okay. Yeah, these are all great points. Okay, so here is the final piece. So this can be considered part E. Okay? And then the final part, and this is the one that gets me, because before this whole section, when I was in America, it was like a knowledge dump. It was just write as much as you can about what you know, and you would get a good grade. And you wrote decent essays, and then I came to Oxford, and I handed in my first paper to my professor, and what do you know, I get a horrible grade back. It didn't count again, because in the UK, the only thing that counts is at the end of the year, so I had time to get better. And he's like, your essay has no structure whatsoever. And then he sat down with me for 2 hours and went over what I'm going over with you now. So this happens at graduate school, okay? A little bit more intricate, but the same basic premise. And the last part is preview your conclusion.
Right. I like the word preview.
Preview. Okay? Crazy, right? We're talking about the conclusion and the introduction.
Yeah.
Right? How many people have ever heard that before? Maybe one, right? So this is really important, because if you think about it, right, you've gone over the whole essay thus far. You're going to talk about this, you're going to talk about this, and this is all in the introduction, right? And I promise you, with practice, you can make this fit into something about that big. Okay? But it takes practice. So, you preview the conclusion. Okay, so you've gone from positive, and negative, which you've used in your favor, right? You've used this because you're going to help support it, because you have to switch it back to a positive. You need to make sure that this matches up with your thesis. You don't want to end your introduction paragraph with something that doesn't talk about your thesis or doesn't support your thesis in some way. So if you switch it back and say, okay, while I understand that being able to measure students objectively is important, I still believe that continual assessments are the best method. I will still argue that continual assessments are the best method. Okay? And then you've literally, by previewing your conclusion, and this can be in a sentence, you've set up a perfect transition sentence into the rest of your essay. Okay, you've set up a perfect transition sentence to go right into this point. And now the cool thing, my mind was blown, okay, when I first saw this, is that now you've essentially written your whole entire essay. Or at least given like a table of contents, or a preview, or an abstract. And you can think about it. If you change these numbers to 2, 3, 4, and 5, let's say you're in a time crunch. I know 5-paragraph essays are like a pretty commonly taught thing. You can think of it in 5 sections. You can think of it, it doesn't have to necessarily just be 5 monstrous paragraphs, but 5 specific topics of your essay. You can make it more depending on the question. But now, the introduction, which you've just written, is number 1. This is paragraph or section 2. This is paragraph or section 3. This is paragraph or section 4. And this is paragraph or section 5. So if you're in a time crunch and you're under time pressure, you can always look back to your introduction and see, okay, I just finished talking about this, now I need to talk about this, okay? And, oh wait, I didn't bring that up in my introduction, so I shouldn't talk about it here. So if you talk about students being more motivated being a reason, and then you talk about another reason that you haven't mentioned anywhere else, it doesn't fit into your roadmap, okay? This is what you're going to tell the reader right here. This is what they can follow. They know after reading this intro, you've hooked me. I'm excited to read about this and learn about this and understand how this side comes into it. Okay? Just like if you introduce things, you better talk about them later on.
So you can't introduce later something new?
No. Unless it builds off of one of these points quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I guess the short answer is yes, you can, but you have to do it you have to craft it very well. Okay, it's like, let's say you're going into like an advanced essay where you need to evaluate, right? You can introduce this point and then bring in supporting points.
Mm-hmm.
But everything has to stem off of this point, or that point, or that point.
Okay.
Just to keep it focused. And that's a very English way of writing, very British way of writing. In the US, you can get away with a little bit more freedom. But having done both, I really like this one better. And that's why I say it's one way. It's not the only way, it's just one way.
We don't do it this way in Russian and Romanian.
Okay.
And you just told me that you can't really introduce a new point, a new idea later. But can you please tell us why not? So,
Because, well, it depends on what new
How do
point.
you see this?
So maybe no is not quite the right answer.
In Russian or Romanian, people just go off topic and start talking about other things in the middle of the essay.
Well, if that's the case, then how do you know that that point supports? If you go on a tangent and you write a lot, all of a sudden, as the reader, I'm going to get really bored and don't really know where it's going, or don't know where it's going to change, or I don't know how this point's going to support that point.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you write, and the reason I say this is because if you go off to university and if you go off to last few years of university, graduate school, if you write an introduction or like a thesis or a research paper, everything in your introduction has to serve a purpose, okay? And if you write something later that hasn't been introduced, okay, then it's just not as good.
So you said you wanted to know where it's going. So you, as a reader, a native speaker of English, you kind of like, when you really want to see the big picture.
Yeah,
If I see people in Romanian and Russian, they just don't. We just want to know every single detail, and we're just interested to
Yes,
read
but
it.
if you say everything in the introduction, what's the point?
Yes.
you expand upon it. You've only given me one sentence about this.
Yes, but you got already.
But I want to know why. So if you write to me, it's important to see the whole picture, right? Your whole second paragraph is going to be about why it's important to see the whole picture. You can bring in a story about a teacher, or you could bring in some evidence that, gives supporting evidence that, actually seeing the whole picture does work. Or,
Do you mind if I jump in?
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Actually, that's the point, Camelia. Sometime and very often when you're a student, when you read introductions which are written this way, you'll be very happy as a student. You read them and you say, okay, now I understand what the whole paper is all about, and it's not really what I need, I'm looking for something else, and you don't need to read the whole paper. Okay? So when I was a kid, I had this naive, childish dream to read all the books which are written in the world. That is just calculate how many books are published every day, and figure it's impossible. And when I think they invented this, way of writing because there's so many books, articles, stories written every day, every single day. And when you're a student, you need to read a lot. This just saves you time. You read the abstract, you read the introduction, and then, in which case, you continue reading the whole paper. In which case?
Yeah. So I guess what we're focusing on here is more like journal articles, which you probably won't see until university, right? But it's the same thing with books. There's always going to be an abstract, as Vladimir was saying. And an abstract will give you the full picture before you even start reading it. And here, if you can keep it focused and keep it concise, that's your ideas, right? And so how it will work is like you can't just say something without backing it up with evidence or stories or something. So if you say this and you hook me in, and your supporting thing is you say, I disagree, continuous is better, and I think so because it paints the whole picture of a student, and then you move on to tell me about this one. I want to know why you think it paints the whole picture of a student, and you can tell me down here why you think it paints the whole picture of a student. You haven't told me, you've given me one sentence up here, and the second paragraph is for you to expand on that idea that you've created. And then you switch to the next idea, so students are more motivated with this. But that's just one sentence. Whereas now you get the chance in paragraph 3 or section 3 to tell me, well, students are more motivated because of this, and I have seen this in my experiences. Or, I have a few friends who have teachers who've done it this way. And then you can start to compare, right? And then the fourth one, you can tell me it's very objective, or is that what you told me it was very objective, right? And I want to learn more about why you think it's objective. And you haven't told me that in the introduction. You just introduced the idea. And then in paragraph 4, you can go on and tell me why you think formal assessments are very objective and why that's, a good thing that we should take into consideration.
But can we add more ideas, not just 3?
Yeah. You can. This is just a template. You can. In a real introduction for like a paper. My introduction for my thesis was like 5 to 10 pages long. So. It's a lot, but once you've painted that picture, and some people, depending on what type of subject you're in, might write the introduction last, as we were talking about the other day. But for a social science degree, you kind of need to know where you're going. And once you know where you're going, you can really direct the research you do, because it can just get so big because there's always going to be more points. There's going to be infinite amount of combinations and points that you could write about right here to answer this question. Literally infinite. I could go to every student in the world, they'd probably give me a different answer just a little bit. Whereas this becomes your answer and your answer only. Does that make sense? Is that good for everyone? Okay. So we're going to try it together. Well, actually, you're going to try it together. And so we actually have a small enough group where we could probably do this in groups of 2. So if you just want to split yourself into 2 groups. And what I'm going to do is I have slips of paper with questions on it. And you get the chance to practice trying to outline an answer for these questions for just an introduction. And then don't be afraid of being wrong, or don't be afraid of making a mistake. If no one made mistakes, I wouldn't have a job. And I love my job. So, feel free to make mistakes. I'm here to help you. And if you did it perfect the first time, then great. But if you don't do it perfect the first time, I couldn't do it perfect the first time. Even I went to some amazing schools, but I really struggled in the beginning with all the schools I went to, as I learned, and it was people, making mistakes and having people help me is what got me to where I am. So, the biggest thing is feeling comfortable around me. Okay, so break it into 2 groups.
The adjective that have
Purposes trecem la știu, să spun.
The addictive that part, gen, care
Dacă după ce introduction, putem spune că future are tools used for different purposes and potential romantic. Asta ca exemplu. Da, nu trebuie să explici. Nu știu, poți să spui despre cine e asta, să cred că apărați în general o să vedeți. Nu și trecem la știu, să spun.
the addictive that part, gen, care
Dacă după ce introduction, putem spune că future are tools used for different purposes and potential romantic. Asta ca exemplu. Da, nu trebuie să explici. Nu știu, poți să spui despre cine e asta, să cred că apărați în general o să vedeți. Nu și trecem la știu, să spun.
the addictive that part, gen, care
Dacă după ce introduction, putem spune că future are tools used for different purposes and potential romantic. Asta ca exemplu. Da, nu trebuie să explici. Nu știu, poți să spui despre cine e asta, să cred că apărați în general o să vedeți. Nu și trecem la știu, să spun.
the addictive that part, gen, care
Dacă după ce introduction, putem spune că future are tools used for different purposes and potential romantic. Asta ca exemplu. Da, nu trebuie să explici. Nu știu, poți să spui despre cine e asta, să cred că apărați în general o să vedeți.
Well, we think that computers are tools which can be used.
What's your question?
The question.
The question is, people use computers when they work or go banking, but some argue it will make people isolated and decrease their social skills. To what extent do you agree with this viewpoint? So basically, computers are making people isolated and decreasing skills. And then that's the question. So what do you agree or not?
Computers are tools which can be used for both private and professional matters. It can be used for both work and socializing. We think that its use for work is very positive and far outline the negatives. For example, work brings people together, as in they form groups to be able to work effectively. Work leads to competition and so to development of said people, but freelancers are usually isolated people because of their work. Computers use in work is very important for our development, and so it helps us develop far more than it isolates us.
Okay, so computers are more beneficial and are worth the social isolation.
And to know people from around the world instead of just knowing for knowledge.
That's a deep question. Yeah, you could learn a lot about that, because what does it mean to be social? Because you could be very social online as well.
Yeah. Using messengers.
I think they probably
should
mean
be used properly, the computer.
properly.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean not to be isolated, but in the same time to help you to solve more fast your problems, like to pay this at the banks. It's very useful.
Yeah. It is so
First
useful,
time on
right?
Facebook.
But as a result, there's definitely less physical time spent with people. Yeah, that's a very, very hard question that you got. So well done on taking on a hard one. How'd they do it?
Great.
Yes. Okay. Next group.
I would ask
Your question.
Smoking not only harms the smoker, but also those who are nearby. Therefore, smoking should be banned in public spaces. To what extent do you agree with this?
Okay.
Smoking is an addictive bad habit. It affects the smoker's health, but also those who spend a lot of time around them. According to statistics, most smokers are men, but the number of women and teenagers is increasing. In some countries, the smoking is banned in public places. However, other countries legally allow people to smoke outside
Right.
their
And
houses.
so now this will lead me to introducing both sides. Okay, and then you can take a sticky note,
I believe that smoking should be
and if you look, they fold right over the string. And then you can see your essay come into shape. And then you can visualize it. And just another way to practice. So then we go, where's the both sides one? Right here. So,
Both sides.
and so then we have essay. You're going to have to duck in a lot. So you're going to, and then it will look like that. And then you go to the next piece of the essay, and the next piece, and the next piece. Okay, good? We understand?
He will get to write.
Yeah. This was just an example to show how it's done. But, all right, so I'm gonna actually. Sorry, buddy. I'm gonna take it down. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, that's what we're doing. If two groups want to merge together, that can work too. But I think it's really cool to see all your work kind of after all your hard work, see it applied around the room. Okay? All right, if you need string, there's not enough for every group, but there's enough physical string, there's just only 3 balls. Okay, so take some string, cut it, and then pass it on to the next group.
Okay.
All right, same thing with sticky notes. There are plenty of sticky notes, just not a lot of pads. Okay? All right, get with your group, find some sticky notes, find some markers, and start putting each section on a sticky note. There you go. I'm going to let you guys do this. Let me get out of your way.
You don't have to have your hands, I don't know how to do it. But if you just stick it anywhere. Okay. What are you doing?
So if somebody wants to write down all the sections and then have it ready to go when you get some string, or if somebody wants to just cut string, well, don't cut string actually, because it might not be long enough.
Where are the scissors?
Scissors!
It's not for you. This is going to cut. Okay? Then take care of this.
We can cut.
So making sure you stick them, so you go from this one to introducing both sides to answering the question to the roadmap to the preview of the conclusion.
Can you explain to me what
This is our string.
Sorry, but
You can borrow. We're running out of time, so what we're gonna do is